Hi, all. Well, thank you, Vesa, and the community for having us. As you all know, there's been a bunch of work that's been happening with the intelligent internet space, especially with more and more work that we're doing with the Teams organization. And we've been also spending a bunch of time updating our digital assets. So what we've been learning from direct customer engagements is something that, Matt and myself spend a bunch of time doing. And so, Vesa put out the call for session topics, and we hopped on the opportunity to hopefully come in and share some of what we're doing to make sure there's visibility into that work, and then also that you all can leverage and hopefully give us feedback on what you're thinking of it. So with that, why don't we do some quick intros? I'm Mike. I work in our customer engineering team with folks like Bert Jensen and others, along with Matt, and we're really focused on how can we help enable yourselves as the community and our customers succeed from an adoption perspective. So with that, I'll hand it over to Matt to let him introduce himself and start walking you all through the content that we have today.
All right, thanks, Mike. Hi, everyone. Matt Wolodarsky. I'm a program manager on Mike's team. Mike's my manager, so please hold off on the difficult questions. Of course, I'm kidding. We welcome them. Yeah, as Mike was saying, I'm focused on helping our customers adopt OneDrive, SharePoint, and the intelligent intranet. So yeah, we're going to cover a few different resources that are available today that we think can be really, really helpful in terms of accelerating your adoption of the intelligent intranet. And it starts with this intelligent intranet digital experience that's on the left-hand side of the slide. That's what I'm going to focus on initially. And think of this as a virtual workshop, which can really guide yourself, your organization, or if you're a partner, it's something that you can use with your customers, hopefully, to help define your vision for an intelligent intranet, get alignment across the different stakeholders that are important to a successful intranet, and then, of course, design and implement, following up with adoption. So we'll be going through that in just a moment. The next two set of resources that you see on the slide are both what we would call solution accelerators. They're both available on lookbook.microsoft.com, which I'm assuming the majority of folks on this call are familiar with, but just in case, the lookbook.microsoft.com is a public site that you all can go to today and get inspired by some of the beautiful designs that our teams have put up there in terms of different site templates. But what makes it, I think, extra special is the fact that it's not only about getting inspired about what's possible with SharePoint, but also you can implement or provision the site templates that you see up on the site into your tenant environment and use that to show your colleagues what's possible. So really, really cool site, lots of great site templates. And we're going to be focusing on two solutions that are available up there. The new Employee Onboarding Hub, which by the name, you can guess what that is about, helping new employees onboard to an organization. And then finally, Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways, which is a Microsoft 365 training solution that you can implement in your tenant and use it to ready your end users for the different apps and services across Microsoft 365. So that's what we're going to be covering today. Let's dive into our first resource, the Intelligent Intranet Digital Experience. And I'm just going to set it up briefly, and then we'll actually take a look at the site, which you can find at aka.ms/intelligent-intranet. And I'll walk you through that, give you a bit of a demo of it. So the reason that we invested in pulling this resource together is, as many of you know, over the last few years, the team has been very focused on making it easier than ever to build an intranet on SharePoint. It's a process that many organizations need to go through. Oftentimes, you need to build a business case to get investment into your intelligent intranet. You need to work on a vision, bring a disparate set of stakeholders together and get them all aligned on that same vision. And then it's not just about implementing the intranet, but you also have to get people in the organization using it and using it in an engaged way where they're contributing their voice and adding to the experience for all employees. So let's take a look at the site itself. And just as I pull it up here, what you'll find, this is the home page, is we've provided this framework. Obviously, there's the 4 steps that you can see on the screen. And it's really intended to take customers through a journey of designing and building their intranet. And within each of these different sections, there's a number of, or a variety of content experiences. And we did that very purposely. Obviously, we know people are working remotely and are just inundated with meetings and virtual conferences and that sort of thing. So we really wanted to make it super engaging. You'll find customer interviews, you'll find demos, webinars, templates, frameworks, animation for all you animation fans out there. So lots of really rich content, and you'll see that as we go through. So we're going to start off our journey with the Explore section, which is all about immersing yourself and your colleagues in the art of the possible. Of course, within the intelligent intranet space, but that gives us a lot of room to play and be creative. But from an Explore perspective, one of the best sources of inspiration, of course, is the SharePoint Lookbook, which I mentioned just a moment ago. There you'll find all sorts of different types of sites, a landing page environment, different departmental portals, solutions. We've highlighted a few of those here on the site. So one of them being this crisis communication site template, which is a great resource for leaders and communicators to share important news and processes to keep everyone in the organization up to date and aligned on how to move through a crisis. There's also a digital workspace, company news site, leadership connection. So lots of different types of sites. Hopefully that will act as a good inspiration of some different ways in which you can use SharePoint, but also give you a excellent head start rather than starting from scratch and staring at a blank page. You've got something that you can take and make your own. All right, so the next section here is a web series that we developed. So we've got an episode per pillar. Right now we're in that Explore pillar. So this particular episode is all about getting stakeholders excited about what's possible, having stakeholders think about their business priorities. And throughout the series, there's a number of Microsoft subject matter experts that have been involved and share their perspectives. But what I think is the most compelling aspect of this web series is we bring in an actual customer who shares their experiences, both the and the bad and the ugly, and provide some really practical tips and best practices. And so the customer is Standard Bank. They're Africa's largest bank, and we've got the 2 stakeholders, Ian and Janine, who led the bank through their intranet journey and offer some great insight throughout the web series. And then we top it off here in this section with a series of demos. Debjani Mitra, our program manager at Microsoft, highlights some of the key capabilities within SharePoint that will be most useful for your intranet. So that's Explore, getting started, getting inspired. Then we move on to Align, and this is where you really want to align with your stakeholders on a common vision of what your intranet and digital workspace is going to look like. So of course we've got our ongoing web series here, but if we zero in to this section of the page, when we talk about getting stakeholder alignment, there's 3 key steps towards that we think are really important. And you may have seen different versions of this, but we believe it starts with understanding your stakeholder goals, whether that's HR, sales, marketing, common stakeholders for an intranet, of course. And you can see with the goals that are filling in here, on the screen, it's at the business level altitude. So improving new employee onboarding experience, increasing awareness of authoritative news. That's not about the technology. That's really about helping our stakeholders accomplish their goals with the technology. And again, that's where we believe it's critical to start the journey. And then, of course, with that insight to the goals of the business, then you can start to brainstorm with those same stakeholders on different scenarios. And then finally, once you've identified your scenarios, it's time to prioritize those scenarios. So this is a cool animation that at a high level, I think takes you through the process. But as part of this site, the download here, this will be a series of templates that you can use and actually apply this approach within your own organization. So let me just very quickly highlight some of the templates that you'll find, starting off with that first step, understanding across the different stakeholder groups what their priorities are, what their challenges are. Really important, obviously, to understand this from your business stakeholder perspective. So this is a way of having those conversations, capturing that information. And then the last one I'll just show you here is the template that we offer to help you create your own scenario. So we've got a framework here, 4 pillars to that framework. We like 4-pillar frameworks, I suppose. Many different versions of this, but at the end of the day, it's really about understanding how is the technology going to be used to accomplish the goal that a particular group or role within the organization has. So check out those templates. Really encourage you to use those as part of your own intranet journey. All right, we're halfway through the journey. We're moving on to the implement section. We hear from Standard Bank on how they went about designing and implementing their intranet on SharePoint. You'll find throughout each of the episodes, I provide a bit of an overview of the step and the tools and templates that we provided. So in the previous phase, for example, I walked through in more detail how to identify priorities, define your scenarios, do the prioritization, and similarly, I'll walk through the design phase. But what we're really talking about in this implement phase is how do I go from the business priority to the scenario to finally the solution? And that's what we're focused on here is designing that solution. But I did want to show you the traceability that each of these solutions as part of your digital workplace, your intelligent intranet has back to the business priority. Really, really important in terms of being able to show the value and return the organization is making on their intelligent intranet. So I did want to show you the template that you'll find here. Of course, you can just download that yourself, but I've got that opened up here. So again, this is just providing a framework for you to consider and use where at a solution level, we're defining the objectives, the metrics, personas. We've got some sample slides here on how you can do that. Here's an example for increasing employee engagement. You can see we've mapped out KPI measures, where we're going to get the data source for that, the KPI formula. So pretty extensive. It may, in some cases, be overkill, but I think taking it at this level and in this quantifiable manner, I think can go a long way in improving the value. And then we've just got some other templates here that can help you go from the high-level solution experience, what are the different components of that within SharePoint and across Microsoft 365, of course. Okay, so on the home stretch, we've gone through implement. Oh, one last thing here. As you scroll down, there's a how-to guidance section. So everything you'll need to know about doing information architecture, sharing and permissions, branding and theming. So take a look through that as well. The last phase here is engage. This is all about driving adoption and end user engagement. And we've got some templates here, an adoption playbook, a project plan, even a sample training plan for SharePoint that you can use as you roll out your intranet and get your users engaged with that intranet. All right. Well, I hope that was useful, and hope this is a site that you can return to many, many times, because it obviously is a lot to consume in one sitting. And if you're just starting your own journey, or maybe you're in the align phase, jump right in and maybe use it to guide you through your process, and use some of the resources that are available, and as they may fit the process that you're going through yourself. So I'm just going to return now to PowerPoint for a moment. Don't worry, I won't spend too much time here, but I did want to intro the next resource. This is the second of the three that we're going to be showing you today, and that's the new Employee Onboarding Hub. I'll show you where you can find it, but it starts with the lookbook. But basically, what the new Employee Onboarding Hub is a series of SharePoint templates that are intended to help new employees onboard successfully. So why did we build the new Employee Onboarding Hub? There's a lot of different site templates that we could build. We've got a lot of them already up today on Lookbook. We did find that this is one of the most popular scenarios or use cases. We did some surveying of customers, and this rated very, very highly. So that was obviously a big motivation for us investing in this area. But it turns out that there's a big opportunity in terms of improving new employee onboarding. There's, I think, two sort of overall drivers of that. One of them is traditionally new employee onboarding from a process standpoint has been very challenging. You may have experienced this yourself, onboarding to the organization you might be working with today, or if you're onboarding people to your organization. There's in fact been some third-party surveying done on this, and I believe the stat was only 12% of new hires thought the onboarding process was helpful or successful. So lots of room for improvement. That's always been there, I would say, but certainly with the pandemic and people having to work remotely, for many organizations, hiring has not stopped. In the case of services, essentially, in fact, it's accelerated. But there isn't a place to go physically to onboard those new employees. So having a digital onboarding experience can be really powerful. And you can see some of the benefits here for organizations that do onboarding correctly. It can help with new hire performance and time to productivity. It can help with reducing new employee churn. A third of new employees, when they start an organization, within the first couple months, they're looking for another job. It can be overwhelming, as we all know. If for me, I have to think back 12 years ago, but I can remember it being an overwhelming experience. So by onboarding, again, new employees correctly, that can go a long way in making them feel like they belong and wanting to stick around and reducing that churn. All right, so now you know why we built it and what some of the opportunities are for investing yourself in this area. Let's actually take a look at what the new Employee Onboarding Hub provides. I promised I would go to Lookbook, so let me start there. So we're just going to go to lookbook.microsoft.com. Lots of different types of SharePoint site templates. I'm going to jump ahead to the solution section. This is where you'll find the new Employee Onboarding Hub. Hopefully folks on the call have played around with the lookbook. Gives you some information about the site features that are used, the web parts, and then you can go ahead and add to your tenant for where you want to install that. And the forms and the process will sort of take it from there. It's a very straightforward process, provided that you have, of course, global admin rights, or you're the tenant admin. I use those interchangeably. Just one last thing to point out, just so folks know it's here. We do have extensive documentation on how to customize, how to provision, of course, but also how to customize the sites. And the other thing to point out here is that there's 3 site types that get included as part of the hub. That's why we call it a hub, not to be confused with SharePoint hubs. We went through a marketing and brand discussion with our marketing team members and landed on that being the best name, despite there being obviously some overlap. But There is a pre-onboarding site for hires who have officially signed the paperwork but haven't yet joined. They haven't walked in the virtual door. Really powerful to begin onboarding at that stage. There's some documented benefits that can come with that. Turns out onboarding is a team sport. So we've included a corporate onboarding site, which I'll show you. I'm going to show you all three of these. And then also departments need to onboard employees in parallel with the corporate HR team, because you're not just joining an organization, you're joining a department and a team. So that's where you'll find the sites. And once you install it, what I'm going to be demoing here is what you'll get. So not only is it the design, the look and feel, the navigation, the information architecture, but we have real content that can be used just as an example, or in some cases, we think it can be used and quickly customized so that you don't have to write some of this copy from scratch. And in fact, we had one of our talented writers develop the content that you see on the site. So let's go through some key highlights of the pre-onboarding site. I'll just scroll through the homepage and then we can dive in. So obviously, reaffirming new employees that they made a good choice is what pre-onboarding and onboarding for that matter is all about, because sometimes people have second thoughts, and making sure people know the values of the organization, that you've got great benefits, that you'll be able to meet some great people. That goes a long way in reaffirming the new hire that they've made a good choice. If we go into the welcome section, here I can watch a video from our CEO welcoming me to the company. I can learn more about the Contoso in this case, and here we go into the values of the organization, and you'll notice the designs I think are really quite striking, very beautiful pages. One of our lead designers, Katie Swanson, worked on this and did a wonderful job. And then you can dive into this page here, prepare for your first day, which I think is really important for new hires. They'll have lots of questions. They need their expectations set properly. Now, in today's day and age, you can see that the designs for this were done before COVID. So it might be a little bit different for at least the next few months. But it's a good way for new hires to get prepared for that first day. That's pre-boarding. I promised that there were types. So the next one is corporate onboarding. So this is once I've actually officially joined, I'm entering the organization, I've got the right credentials, because with this pre-boarding site, we do use external guest access within SharePoint to restrict restart hires to be able to only access the site. We don't want them to have access, of course, to our systems and confidential information because they haven't yet officially started. Okay, so I've just started my first day. I'm going to learn about the organization, and this is a great way to orientate yourself. I can learn about the story of the company. I can meet the leadership team. And so if you're building your own new hire site using these site templates, you could just go in and swap in the right pictures, the right names, and this gives you a good sort of design for presenting your leadership team. And that's how we hope and believe we're really accelerating your implementation of a solution like this, rather than having to start from scratch. You've got some really good IP to help get you started. Obviously, building connections, really important for a new hire, that they start building their network. So lots of different ways to do that. People care about their paycheck a lot. We didn't need to research that to know that was really important. So lots of information about that. Virtual events are now a good way to onboard. They've always been, I think, but especially important. So that's a good way to profile them. We've brought in the company's Twitter. This is, again, a way to reaffirm that the new hire made a good decision. Here's all the activities that we have in our communities with our customers and partners. And then, of course, the new hire Yammer community using the new Yammer web part. We've just embedded that into the corporate onboarding page, so I don't have to switch context as a new hire. If I want to learn from my cohort, some of my other new hire colleagues, what some of the burning questions are, and then ask my own questions here and hear from other team members and HR. Okay, so that's the home page. We're going to just take a look at one of the central components, I believe, of this site experience, and that is the onboarding checklist. Met with a lot of customers, particularly the HR professionals within those organizations, to understand some of the key pain points. And I heard pretty consistently that the way onboarding is done and the experience for the new hire can be radically different depending upon what department, what team, and what manager I have. I've heard horror stories where, you know, for some people, they had a manager who unfortunately either didn't know or wasn't that interested in onboarding, and that new hire had a very bad experience versus somebody coming onto the same organization having a wonderful onboarding experience. So consistency is a real challenge. And so we've defined as a starting point, again, this onboarding journey. We call it the new hire checklist. So this is using Microsoft lists and basically an outline of the different tasks that new hires should be doing on day 1, day 2, day 3, week 2, week 3. We in fact go out 3 months. It obviously gets a little bit less cumbersome in terms of the number of activities, but the thing about onboarding is it's definitely not a 2-day process. I've read stats where it takes on average 8 months for a new hire to get up to speed. Maybe that's too long for a lot of organizations, so we settled on 3 months. But you can easily edit this SharePoint list, add, edit, delete what works for you, and this can be a checklist that all new hires use so that they're going through the same journey. And so I'll just scroll to show you some of the other columns here. We point to what the resource is, and then of course URL. Okay, so that's the onboarding journey. Just to show you a couple other things we've got in our story section here. So again, this can be a nice template for you to write the story for your organization. Different office locations can be highlighted. I think this is a great template page again, because a lot of organizations have different locations that they'll want to highlight. Also a place for new hires to go and review frequently asked questions and see some of the responses. So these are actual questions that we all know new hires will have when they get started. So you'll just need to, of course, customize the answer, but it's a good laundry list of commonly asked questions. The one last page I want to show you this, and that's because I think that's just a really, really nicely designed page, is the resource group. So lots of organizations obviously have different employee groups, different resource groups, and this is a good way to profile those to entice people to join the ones that are what they're looking for. A really nicely designed page. Kudos to Katie on that. All right, so the next and last set of sites I'm going to show you here are the departmental sites. So corporate onboarding can only go so far in terms of indoctrinating the new hire in the culture, the company values, the processes that everyone does at a corporate level. The department needs to pick up the baton and help welcome and orientate the new hire into their department. And so we've got a departmental onboarding template. This one is for engineering. We've actually built two just to give you some different flavors. The other one is sales. This one is connected to the corporate onboarding site as an associated site. So the corporate onboarding site is a hub site. So you can see the global navigation or the hub navigation that I'll always have as I navigate through these different departmental sites. But then I get the local site nav, and I can learn about, again, the leadership, the organization, what are the different teams within the department, links to their sites, or if they've got a Teams channel. So lots of things that you can do with this, obviously, and hopefully this gives you a nice head start in planning and implementing your own new hire set of sites. Okay, so that's the new employee onboarding hub. I'm just going to switch over to back to the slide deck to talk about the last resource, and that is Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways. So for those of you that are not familiar with Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways, it's a website, again, up on Lookbook that you can go to and install in your tenant environment and configure and customize both the site and the playlist. There's a series of Office 365 or Microsoft 365 training playlists, and help your end users learn and get ready to use Office 365. It covers the suite from SharePoint, OneDrive, to Teams, to accessibility, all sorts of different playlists, even one now for remote work. Obviously, that is bringing more and more users to Microsoft 365, so that means more users to train. So if you haven't looked at this site yet, I really encourage you to take a look at it, because we all know how important training and readiness is for end users to be able to successfully adopt Microsoft 365. So let's just take a look. I'm not going to, in the interest of time, be able to go into a demo like I did with the other resources, but just to give you a high level of the site, and also touch on our recent release. For those of you that haven't installed, we did release a new version not too long ago. But in terms of learning pathways and why this is a useful site or a useful training solution to help train your end users on the different apps and services of Office 365, well, number one is it's always up-to-date content. So we're using a web part to stream in content from docs.microsoft.com, and sorry, the learning site as well. Just escapes me the URL, but it's where we house all our end user training, where all that training content gets updated when a new feature gets released. So we're making sure that the training content within your instance of learning pathways is always up to date. You can also very easily customize the content. So if you've implemented some of the different apps and services within Office 365 a little bit differently than the out-of-the-box configuration, then you can add your own assets to a playlist. You can create your own playlist from scratch if you want to promote certain scenarios. And you can also show or hide different technologies or different playlists if you haven't implemented, for example, one of the tools within Office 365 to not confuse your end users, which we heard from a lot of our customers was happening when they were sending their end users to the public sites of training content. And you can make sure that your training content within Learning Pathways reflects your environment. And just the breadth of training content, and we're always adding new content, new playlists, I think is pretty extensive. So you'll find that it's quite useful. We did, as I mentioned, do a new release version. We're now up to version 4.1. It was 4.0 that brought in multilingual support. That was the #1 request that we had from customers. We support now 9 languages. As well, there's a getting started app template, which basically brings learning pathways into Microsoft Teams, which can be great for organizations that are adopting or have adopted Microsoft Teams and really want that to be kind of the main place for end users to get their work done. Those are the 3 resources, obviously just concluding there on learning pathways. If you are a partner on this call, there's different programs that we have to get involved and so that you can help your customers adopt some of these different solutions. And I'm going to hand it over to my manager, Mike, who will walk you through that.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Matt. So this is a community call. And so we've intentionally been leaning in and engaging from an open source platform on these solutions, and then wrapping them as we see as great opportunities to engage and enable our collective customers together. So with Learning Pathways explicitly, we've started a partner early adopter program. And I'm not going to drain the whole slide, but the keys here are that it's available for partners and MVPs, such as yourselves in the community. It's a way to engage a little closer with the V team that we have going on enablement of this solution. We hit on monthly onboarding topics. We try to provide a roadmap to this group before we show up at conferences and surprise everybody in the audience with what's coming. And then, we release features. So for example, Learning Pathways, we've just enabled multilingual support for 8 additional languages. This is an opportunity, if you've made an investment on this solution, to actually get that feature before it rolls out broader. So similar to kind of private preview programs, but also more attuned to the community, because we want to get feedback on what is and isn't working on our partners or MVPs' investment on top of these solutions. And so what we're really trying to do too is enable a opportunity to get visibility into any offers that you may have created on top of these solutions. So we've started to actually have a self-nomination form for the community. If you've created, for example, a Learning Pathways explicit offering that's built on top of the platform, then we want to recognize that. We want to have a way that our customers can go and actually discover that you have solutions along those lines in market. And so we're working on enabling more and more of these types of programs so that we recognize the kind of better together of Microsoft and our partners to help enable our customers. And so you're going to see more of that. And I just wanted to make another call to action. You'd be surprised that, we feel like we broadcast this, but a lot of folks might not know about these programs. And so really do ask out to us, and there'll be a ability to do so in the coming slide if you want to get engaged with these programs. But we think it's a really great way to recognize the work and investment that's gone on into some of these solutions. And then finally, that was specific for Learning Pathways, but if you look at the lookbook solutions, there's quite a few. And for example, take the new employee onboarding example that Matt just showed, a partner early adopter program around that. And so we are exploring how to kind of genericize this platform so that we can do this for the broader solution base. And so if you would be interested in that, we're actually looking through the funding and costing of that. Fill out the AKMS form for us. Let us know who you are. Give us some comments on that, or hit us up on the email address that I put at the bottom of the screen. We think there's a lot of value from a community enablement perspective there, and so this is another way for you as a community to provide us that input back over on the Microsoft side. And so with that, I believe we are wrapped up, Vesa.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike and Matt. Really, really great stuff. And just a reminder, everybody, the tech what you're seeing being used with the Learning Pathways and Neo is actually open source. The service called lookbook.microsoft.com is actually open source. Many of these templates are actually open source. So if you see a cool looking template and you would like to use that and slightly adjust that for your customer, you actually can. You can actually use also PowerShell to provision those templates if that is the preferred scenario, if you're looking to extend on these things. So really, really cool stuff.